There's a boatload of bad financial advice on the internet. I often talk to folks who take this stuff at face value, things that are thought of as common knowledge that are in fact wrong, and not knowing that can absolutely ruin your retirement. And so that's why we're here today. I'm going to go over the most common pieces of retirement advice that are actually ruining retirements so that they don't get you. The first one is this: everything is better when you retire. Not true. Everything is better when you make it better. You have to be retiring to something. Don't just retire to the couch. You'll be miserable. The freedom that you get when you retire, when you buy back your time, can't be overstated. It's one of the most powerful moments of your life. But that freedom alone isn't going to create lasting happiness. It's what you do with that freedom that matters. People think that if they just retire, everything will be all better, and it's just not true. And so how do you set yourself up for success here? Here's a couple of tips. Fix it by being like Santa. Make a list. Check it twice. Keep the list running for 5+ years before retirement. A list of all of the things that you want to do in retirement, the clubs you want to join, the places you want to volunteer, the destinations you want to visit. Here's the second part. Try out as many of those things on the list as you can. If you think that you want to buy a vacation house in the Florida Keys, try to spend as much time in the Keys as possible living, not just being touristy, before you retire to see if it's really viable. The second thing, and this one is humongous, make sure that you have a strong social unit before you retire. Without it, retirement can get lonely, and that's one of the most underestimated pitfalls retirees face, to the point of outright depression at times for some folks. You're upending your life when you retire. You have to have a plan beyond just a money plan for what's going to fill you up. Studies have shown that interaction with those close to us, family and close friends, can have a literal impact on our health. I saw a study just a few weeks back that showed the impact of having close friendships was the same as having a lower body mass index, a lower BMI as you age. It had a real, tangible, measurable positive impact on your longevity. The second mistake is this: we have an absolute fixation with more. Basically, that's true in our country. Consumerism and consumption are the primary driving forces in the American economy, always chasing more. Now, that's not entirely bad. It's because of that drive that we have a lot of the standard of living that we enjoy in this country. It's the American spirit. But when you combine that constant chase for more, along with the single largest fear of most pre-retirees, which is running out of money, you come up with harmful myth number 2. It's that you need a massive sum of money to be able to retire well. You see this in news articles, in YouTube videos. You need $2 million to retire. The number keeps going up, and honestly, it's kind of getting absurd. It's easy to understand why this is the case. It's scary to give up the paycheck and just assume that everything will be fine, but you have to rebel against that common thinking here. It's that kind of scarcity mindset that manifests itself into people working longer often than they need. They work an extra 1, 2, 3 years to save more money, to chase more. Let me walk you through exactly how that goes and why it's a problem. You think, hey, no big deal. It's just another year or two. Let's say that you take care of yourself. You're in good health and you get lucky and you stay in really good, solid physical shape until you're 75 years old. Full on go-go years. Travel, all of the fun stuff all the way to 75. I'll tell you from my experience, that isn't normally the case, but you're an outlier and it happens. So let's look at an optimistic example. If you're watching this right now and you're 59 and you plan to retire at 62, which is very common, and you get the full boat, the go-go years all the way to 75. That means you got 13 years of your absolute best retirement years left. But here's the rub. What if you had enough money at 59 already to retire, but you didn't know it? Now, I'm going to go full math nerd here. 3 years of the 62 years you've lived at this point represents only a tiny sliver of your life. 4.8% of your total life seems like a tiny amount. But those 3 years represent 23% of the go-go years of retirement you could have had, and that's assuming that you stay rock solid all the way to 75. And so here's the thing you've got to do to avoid it. It's not that working to 62 is the problem. It's that if work doesn't fill your cup, if it's not your life's passion, if it doesn't recharge the batteries, and you just continue to do what you're doing because you assume that you need more money, because of all of these stupid articles, when in fact you haven't created a plan to find out, you might trade 23% or more of your best remaining years just to die with more money. I know that sounds harsh, but if you think you might even be ballpark close to being able to retire, build a financial plan with someone to find out, one, if you're already there. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to retire today, but but at least you'll know that you can. And trust me, that will change how you look at your daily life. Or two, you'll figure out what things you have to do to get there so that you don't spend more of your life doing something you don't want to get more of something that you don't need. Now, if you're finding the viewpoint here seems a little different than some of the other financial advisor videos you've seen, that's because we are different. I'm a financial advisor, but the work that I do with clients begins with them, not with the numbers. And I think that makes all the difference. That's why we created the Clear Vision retirement planning process. It's designed to start with you and to build a plan where all the money supports the why. If that's missing in your current advisor relationship, or you don't have an advisor and you want to see how this would work for you, check out the first link in the description and set up a time for us to chat. Now let's get back to the action. Common myth number 3, it's the 4% rule. Yep, I'm picking on the 4% rule again, but it's honestly not actually the 4% rule that's the issue. It's any retirement spending plan that isn't dynamic, it's static. And that's because retirement spending isn't static. It's a smile. We've talked about this before. You spend more early in retirement because you're crushing your bucket list. And then at some point you slow down. Life is good, but you just literally spend less. It's less travel. It's more time at the coffee shop with the guys in the morning. Still good, but less expensive. And then spending picks up again at the end, but typically it's spending on medical care. And so you've got to have a dynamic income plan that accounts for these different stages. Think about it this way. Retirement isn't one lump thing. It's dynamic in the same way that your accumulation, your working years weren't just one stage. Inside of all of that time, you got a job, you got promoted, you changed careers, you got married, you had kids, you spent entire summers on the travel baseball circuit. There are like a million different mini stages that happen during that time. We as advisors tend to want to call that the accumulation phase, and that's super two-dimensional. Retirement is similar to that. It's not one static thing. It's a ton of mini stages, and your plan needs to work accordingly. And so how can you do it? Well, first, you build up a minimum income baseline, and then you use a variable strategy on top of that. So to start off with, what's the baseline income you'll need all throughout retirement? Essentially, think of the low point of the smile here. How much is that? And once you've created income to meet that baseline, pension, Social Security, fixed annuity payments, dividends, whatever your specific strategy may be, now you layer on top of that additional variable income for the front end, and you create income protections for the back end. Because remember, the front end of the smile is a different type of spending than the spending you're going to have to do late in life. Add on top of that the plan should account for inflation, for down markets, for minimizing taxes, and you got it licked. We're on to number 4. Number 4 is really two sides of the same coin, and just like Goldilocks, the successful path is not too hot, it's not too cold. Have you ever heard somebody say, I don't want to invest in the market anymore because I'm retired or I'm retiring, and I've been through those painful experiences, the dot-com bust, the 2008 crash, all of that, and I don't have the time to recover anymore. Plus, I'm not working now, so I can't afford to invest like that. That sounds very reasonable, but it's too extreme, too hot, or too cold. And in the long run, it creates problems for you. Moving away from risk assets, moving out of the stock market, can severely limit your long-term growth. Remember, retirement is a 30-plus year journey. Let's say we're talking about $1 million the day that you retire. And let's say that you're going to draw $36,000 a year from it, $3,000 a month, and you earn a 6.5% return. Nothing major, no wild returns here. Moderate conservative portfolio level, some stock money, some conservative money. At the end of the rainbow, if we adjust the monthly income for inflation, after 30 years, you've drawn out over $900,000 in income, and at that time, you've got a little under $1 million left. Now, this is napkin math, so we're not accounting for taxes, sequence of returns, lots of other variables, but bear with me for the point here. Let's say that you decide that you just can't take the market anymore. So when you retire, you get out of it completely, you go all bonds, CDs, other lower earning but less volatile investments. Same scenario, but now you make 3.5% using the same income, adjusting for the same inflation. After 30 years, you end up with exactly $3,147, $3,000 left over. You are less than a month away from being broke. And so here's the thing. It's not that you can't have money in the market because you're retired. You have to give different money, different jobs. You shouldn't rely on stock market money for your income because it's too volatile. You're right, the fluctuations, you can't have that. But you need that type of money somewhere in the portfolio for future growth. And while you need to change your strategy, oftentimes lowering your stock allocation, eliminating it completely, avoids one problem just to create some new problems. This is why a real, actual retirement income plan is vital. Now, I said it was a two-sided coin, and so now we're going to talk about the other side. It's somebody saying, I don't care about volatility, I can withstand it, and staying super stock heavy into retirement. It's an exceedingly rare situation where someone should have, let's say, 80% plus of their money in the market in retirement. While the math folks will say this gives you the greatest return, and they're right, this is one of those spaces where you have to look at the math and see how it makes application to real life. Think of it like this. The speed limit on the interstate is 70 miles an hour. It's legal to go that fast. Should you drive that fast on the interstate during a gigantic blizzard? No, you should not. It's not illegal. It would still get you there the fastest, but it's stupid because chances are you'll end up wrecking or maybe even worse. Unless you have massive amounts of guaranteed retirement income to the tune that you're running a surplus every single month just from your guarantees, where the portfolio truly is basically all somewhere in the future money, you can't invest so heavily in stocks. Remember, Goldilocks lies in the middle, and for most people, that means making a change to how they invest in retirement as opposed to how they invested while they were working, regardless of if they're a conservative investor or an aggressive investor. If you don't have a retirement income plan that accounts for all of this, you need to get one. And in reality, you need to get one about 5 years or so before you retire, because within that time frame, you've entered the space where things outside of your control can impact your ability to retire or the quality of your retirement. Now that we've covered the biggest retirement wrecking myths, I hope you'll apply this to your own plan. If you don't have a plan, by all means, I mean it, reach out. I'll be happy to let you know what we can do to help. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.